Hello, this is 4622. Welcome to spring quarter. My name is Audrey Kunisekov, and I'm going to be your professor. I'm an instructor of data analytics in the business program. I'm also a PhD student in the industrial organizational psychology department. What in the world is that? Very long way of saying work psychology or business psychology. It's the application of psychology to the business world. My undergrad degree is also in psychology. What does this mean for you is that my perspective of classrooms and my understanding about the world is probably shaped a little differently than you, just because, psychology classes versus business classes, they're a little different, right? You should also know that I am I'm here on a one-year contract with SPU. I'm not a regular teacher here. Before last quarter, winter, I had adjuncted a few classes in the psychology department, but I'm not a regular faculty member. The impact on you is that I don't really know all of the policies and all the like referral type things that you might need as students from a professor. So if you need those type of things, you're probably better off going to a different professor, or know that it will take me longer. I won't know them off the top of my head. I'll have to figure it out. So just know that that is my limitation as a professor for you, just because I haven't been at the school as a professor for very long. Other things that you should know about me is I'm actually very much an introvert. So Zoom life for teaching has actually been a little beneficial for me, because in a classroom full of people, I can get very nervous and forget everything. So if you're one of those folks, don't feel bad. You too can teach classes. I also make fun of myself a lot. And I'm a big geek. I'm a nerd. So I've definitely used a lot of D&D examples and things like that for my database examples, because that's the largest database I personally had to build. And yeah, I've taught stats using Harry Potter references and all sorts of nonsense. So expect those kind of things from me. Otherwise, if I think about business case stuff, it's usually going to be from HR, just because that's been my world for the last few years, being in the talent development group at a biotech company. All right, so enough about me. How do I see this class? So the database class, fundamentally, it's a very technical class. You're going to learn how to design a database from just pen and paper all the way through putting it into the system, including learning how to do SQL. When I took this class, it was mostly actually to learn the SQL. Not that you can't just go and learn it off of YouTube or whatever. You obviously can. SQL as a language hasn't really changed much in the last 20 years. So it's not that hard at all to do it that way. I needed the forcing function though, because knowing how to use SQL and having a good general understanding of databases is kind of really important within the whole data cycle. And I know you've been taking classes that have been around this. I think in the fall you had a class that had a little intro to databasing, along with like data visualization and other things. And so you should have kind of a holistic idea of what the data cycle looks like and how things kind of piece them together. So we're going to basically take a deeper dive into that. And are you going to use Access in the future? Honestly, probably not. There's a lot more advanced software. Access is honestly kind of a pain. It's not as well supported as a lot of the other Microsoft products, and Microsoft has a lot of other products that they care about more. So it's just not as good as something like if you're working with Oracle or something. But it's a fundamental set of tools that pretty much anyone that you meet that does databases professionally learned on Access. So it's kind of this shared pain that everyone's gone through. But it's good enough for the job that we are going to do. And as a Microsoft campus, we have free access to it. So that's why we use it pretty much. So with that in mind, a lot of the things I'm a little bit more concerned about is more of the conceptual side and um, more of building the skills of paying attention to the details that will matter if you're a user of a system and not just the builder of the system. Okay, so I'll be kind of focusing on those kind of pieces of it, and I'll try to lay those out for you clearly throughout the quarter. In terms of my teaching philosophy, it's very much built on the current state of the world. So it might be 2021, but it's honestly still 2020, right? Like we're still living through the same issues that have been going on for an entire year. We're all tired. As I record this, we're in Washington, in the Seattle area, we're looking at another uptick in cases, and the world's a mess, right? And not only have a lot of us been personally impacted by COVID, whether people have gotten sick and died, or there's been financial impacts, or plethora of other things. But this situation has highlighted the social inequities of the world, the biggest of those being the racial inequities. And we saw that in the increased focus of the Black Lives Matter movement about a year ago, especially the impacts on Black women. There's been a lot of racism a year ago and more increasingly of late against the Asian American community as people react against the virus. There's at the school, we've had not legislation, but a lawsuit regarding the LGBTQ hiring decision. There's just a lot of things going on. As a student, I know that it's a very, when you have a lot of stresses like this that have nothing to do with the classes themselves, it really bogs down the brain. It makes learning very difficult. It makes the small tasks seem very big. Mental health has just been awful for a lot of people. So if you've been feeling these things and struggling with these things, you are not alone whatsoever, and I completely understand. Everyone's situations and impacts are different, obviously. But I am not immune to these as well. So in response to these, there's a few things that I'm trying to do. First is, well, one chunk of this is to try to do what I can do to make classrooms a better place. So part of that is the decolonization of classrooms. And a big part of that is classism. I know for SBU, this is a very expensive college. Undergrad, you have more options for scholarships and grants and things like that, but it's still extremely expensive. So I choose not to use any textbooks that you have to buy. If this was a core class with a textbook that was like a Bible type textbook where you refer to the textbook for the rest of your life, that'd be a different decision, but it isn't. The textbook that you'd read from this, you could get a similar textbook anywhere, kind of thing. If you need databases in the future, you'll just look up the information that you need, or get a textbook that is very specifically on the small part instead of a generalized textbook like you would get in class that you'd use in a classroom like this. So this class is going to be supported by a textbook that is written by a woman and an Asian American man. But the primary content is actually going to be from my lectures, which will all be screencasted just like this, and made available on YouTube, so you can just run through them really quick. I have failed to figure out how to properly do the captioning on these. So if you need that, please let me know ASAP, and I will work with our tech folks to help me figure that one out. I'm planning on using most of the recordings that I used for the grad class. And they all pretty much follow the PowerPoint decks, so hopefully it won't be an issue. Yeah, but just let me know if there's any accessibility things that you need from me. I'll do my best to get it figured out ASAP. And the other piece is that if last quarter, the beginning of the quarter was the storming of the castle at the Capitol, and you know, events like that, we will make time for to talk about as a group, if you want the space. So if, yeah, hopefully that's not needed at all. But if things happen, yeah, we'll make room for those conversations, because it's important, because we're all people. We're all students, but we're all people first. So that's one piece of it. The other side of it is just how do we deal with this, with the classrooms itself? Because that's kind of a preparation side on my part. So my goal is to move you from a performance orientation where you're worried about grades into a space of learning. Yes, grades are important. The business school has like special accreditations, and they're very keen on this and have a lot of restrictions onto, you know, so much of your grade has to be on this percent of, like, this much has to be on presentations, this much has to be written, stuff like that. But my goal is to try to give you as much leeway as possible, so you're less worried about that and more worried about giving me a good product and showing me that you've learned things with a less stressful weight on top of it, if that makes sense. So part of that is just, I will treat you with kindness, understanding, trust, and grace. If you need to not be in a classroom or in a class session because things come up, like, I don't want you to sit there and have to make excuses about a dying aunt or something like that. If you say that your aunt is dying, I 100% will believe you, because that's a possibility. But I don't want you to feel like you have to lie about things to get out of things if you need time off or whatever. I just want you to communicate with me, right? So if sports are making you not be able to play because they're doing special arrangements or whatever, you know, just let me know what's going on. I expect you to be in classes, but if you have to miss, I will understand. You know, I will just treat you with as much kindness and understanding as possible. I will treat you like you're an adult. I know that I don't know the undergrad classes here, but in my experience as undergrad, you definitely don't always get treated like an adult. And in the workplace, you're not always treated like an adult. So I will treat you like an adult in this classroom. I'll really treat you like you're a graduate student, because that's been my experience. Yeah, so I hope that you will offer me the same amount of grace and understanding if I trip up on things, because I'm human too. So I think that wraps it up. You don't have any readings or anything before the first day of class, because you're an undergrad class and I won't do that to you. But we'll get started. We'll talk about the syllabus and stuff. It will be a short class, and then we'll hit the ground running, and you'll start learning things and be prepared for stuff on Thursday. All right, I'm looking forward to meeting you all on Tuesday.